Midnight fog drifts across Waddesdon Hill, curling around towers and chimneys, softening stone edges into shadows. Gravel crunches under unseen footsteps. Lanterns flicker along the carriage drive, revealing glimpses of staircases that rise abruptly and disappear. Corridors that twist beyond expectation, and windows reflecting other windows in silent repetition. The gardens, meticulously arranged, seem larger in shadow, terraces extending into the mist. Inside, fireplaces breathe warmth into empty salons. Tapestries hang perfectly, yet hint at hidden passageways. Chandeliers glint faintly, as though conscious of being watched. The house is both magnificent and unsettling, a stage for power and obsession. Records suggest Baron Ferdinand de Rothschild intended grandeur as argument, beauty as permanence. Historians note the estate demanded constant attention, labor, and vigilance. Every light maintained, every hearth stoked, every door opened perfectly reinforced the illusion. Yet beneath the symmetry, systems hum quietly, waiting for failure. Staff move unseen, gardens drink water, boilers roar, and hidden mechanisms work relentlessly. The cost of imperfection is implicit. Slip, and decades of investment unravel. The manor is alive with expectation, order, and strain. The house commands attention and obedience, and it raises a question that lingers in every corridor, every window, every terrace. How long can perfection survive before it consumes those who created it? From the valley, Waddesdon rises like a ghostly vision, pale stone catching the first hints of sunlight through lingering mist. Rooflines stack unpredictably, dormers and chimneys jutting in patterns that confuse the eye. Terraces extend with precision, almost too perfect, and windows seem to face each other, reflecting endless corridors within. The scale overwhelms. Over 60 principal rooms, hundreds of service spaces, and gardens that spiral beyond easy comprehension. Records suggest construction costs exceeded £1 million, a sum staggering even by Victorian standards. Materials arrived from across Europe, stone by rail, timber cut to specification, carvings imported from Parisian workshops, furniture handcrafted with precision. Heat, water, and early electricity required industrial-level planning. Every pipe, pump, and conduit worked silently beneath floors. Visitors saw only beauty, symmetry, and abundance. Historians note that hidden labor and constant resource consumption formed the estate's invisible pulse. Maintenance escalated silently, every season demanding attention. The house promised wonder, but exacted hidden cost. Novelty became obligation. Staff rehearsed movement endlessly. Precision was non-negotiable. Systems hummed behind walls, and every delayed repair whispered warnings. Grandeur multiplied expenditure and risk. From afar, Waddesdon inspired awe. Up close, it demanded vigilance. The question lingered, suspended like mist. Could perfection endure under the weight of its own ambition? Beneath salons and galleries, behind gilded walls and polished floors, Waddesdon functioned as a quiet, invisible machine. Servant corridors twisted like veins, connecting kitchens, laundries, and service rooms, allowing labor to flow unseen. Bells summoned staff instantly. Records indicate dozens of indoor workers, hundreds more outdoors, all moving in choreographed rhythm. Gardens required daily pruning, terraces watered and manicured, fountains monitored. Engineers maintained boilers, pumps, and ventilation systems night and day. Laundry consumed vast quantities of water, fuel, and effort. Accidents likely occurred, though historians note documentation is scarce, perhaps deliberately hidden. Hours were long, discipline strict, and privacy limited to owners. Every movement was precise. Meals appeared without flaw. Fires burned steadily. Paths remained immaculate. Emotional pressure accumulated invisibly. Guests felt comfort. Workers felt strain. Success relied on invisibility. If systems faltered, illusion collapsed. The house's beauty depended on unseen labor, absorbed continuously. Fatigue accumulated quietly. Loyalty became expectation. Systems grew interdependent, absorbing effort like fuel. Maintenance became existential. The building's elegance concealed endless motion. Historians suggest this tension shaped the estate's character. What appeared effortless demanded constant supervision. Survival required adaptation and sacrifice, and only through vigilance did Waddesdon maintain its spell, a fragile triumph built upon repetition, exhaustion, and the careful orchestration of hundreds of lives beneath the glittering facade. Behind the ornamental stone, beneath ornate walls, Waddesdon relied on concealed machinery rivaling industrial factories. Historians believe engineers adapted urban technology for rural scale, balancing prestige against practicality. Failure was intolerable. A cold dining room hinted at weakness. A dark corridor suggested neglect. Maintenance schedules governed daily life more than social calendars. Bulk fuel storage increased fire risk, while insurance mitigated potential disaster. Water pumps ran constantly. Noise had to be masked. Servants perfected silence as a skill. The facade promised ease. The infrastructure denied it. Records suggest oversight defined daily routines. Every improvement deepened complexity. Simplification became impossible without loss of status. Systems multiplied. Dependency hardened. The house could not be partially alive. It was either fully operational or failing. This all-or-nothing logic turned routine maintenance into existential pressure. Oversight distanced owner from guest, making invisible labor central to estate survival. Beauty depended on strain. Strain demanded supervision. Historians note that hidden infrastructure governed perception and reality simultaneously. Each bolt, pipe, and boiler connected to hundreds of decisions. Every season introduced new risk. The estate existed as a balance of aesthetics and function, perfection and fragility. The question sharpened quietly. Could such a mechanical organism survive beyond one patron's vision without unraveling entirely? As seasons passed, admiration mixed with doubt. Over years, admiration coexisted uneasily with apprehension. Ledgers thickened. Deliveries multiplied. Repairs followed almost immediately, revealing the fragility behind the facade. Records indicate Ferdinand monitored expenses closely, yet refused visible compromise. Every decision reinforced spectacle. Invitations became rarer, grander, meticulously timed. Staffing stabilized at high levels, yet replacement costs rose as skilled artisans aged or departed. Gardens required constant redesign to remain fashionable. Each adjustment resetting maintenance obligations. The question shifted from marvel to endurance. Could privacy survive attention? Could spectacle remain fresh without endless expenditure? Advisors worried quietly. Friends admired brilliance, unaware of mounting strain. Historians note elite projects often trap creators in escalating cycles of ambition and cost. Retreat suggested failure. Advancement magnified pressure. Ferdinand's pride coexisted with vigilance. Satisfaction never fully settling. Celebration carried calculation. Weather threatened roofs. Frost cracked pipes. Technology aged fast. The house stood complete yet unfinished, its future contingent on decisions yet unmade. Pressure, loss, and necessity loomed silently. Every choice shaped survival. Systems aged, staff strained, and budgets tightened. The estate became simultaneously refuge and responsibility. Novelty, labor, and maintenance intertwined. The question of endurance lingered, whispering beneath chandeliers, corridors, staircases, and terraces. Could perfection persist without devouring those who upheld it? Baron Ferdinand de Rothschild was not chasing novelty alone. Born into a banking dynasty, he understood legacy as structure, not sentiment. He inherited wealth young and responsibility earlier. Records indicate he preferred control over display. Waddesdon offered both. Unlike some peers, he avoided political office and public agitation. He invested in objects, land, and permanence. Collecting was methodical. Hosting was strategic. The house functioned as a curated environment where taste equaled authority. Ferdinand's health was fragile. Historians believe awareness of mortality influenced urgency. He built knowing time was limited. That knowledge sharpened intent. The manor became a vessel for memory and influence. Yet, it also isolated him. Distance from London reduced intrusion but increased reliance on systems. Decisions concentrated inward. Advisors filtered information. Emotional stakes rose with every improvement. Failure would be personal. Success would still be temporary. This tension shaped leadership style. He delegated heavily, yet inspected outcomes. He valued loyalty. He demanded precision. The project reflected him closely. That closeness carried risk. When the builder and the building align too tightly, any crack threatens both identities simultaneously. Such alignment magnifies achievement, but also amplifies collapse when conditions shift. Compared to contemporaries, Ferdinand's approach diverged sharply. Many Victorian elites pursued political leverage or industrial expansion. Ferdinand pursued consolidation. He avoided parliamentary ambition. He avoided speculative risk. Historians note his restraint contrasted with flamboyant peers who chased public visibility. At Waddesdon, control replaced competition. Guest lists were selective. Events were deliberate. Nothing functioned as accident. Unlike country houses built for seasonal shooting parties, Waddesdon emphasized collection, conversation, and presentation. The house was not a retreat from modernity. It was a controlled encounter with it. Ferdinand trusted systems over spontaneity. He favored predictability. This preference shaped staffing, scheduling, and design. Rooms guided movement subtly. Service areas minimized intrusion. Surveillance was indirect, but constant. He differed emotionally as well. Letters suggest a reserved temperament. Displays of excess were carefully framed as culture, not indulgence. This distinction mattered. It justified expense internally. It defended reputation externally. Peers might gamble influence. Ferdinand fortified environment. That strategy reduced scandal risk. It increased structural dependence. When identity anchors to control, flexibility weakens. The difference seemed strength. Over time, it narrowed options. This contrast would matter later, when external forces tested estates built on dominance rather than adaptability, exposing limits quietly embedded within deliberate restraint and calculated distance from public life. The choice of location was deliberate, not pastoral romance. Waddesdon Hill offered elevation, visibility, and separation. Records indicate Ferdinand rejected sites closer to London. Distance filtered access. Isolation reduced obligation. Control increased. The hilltop allowed surveillance of approaches and symbolic dominance over surrounding farmland. Rail connections existed, but final access required coordination. Guests committed effort. Deliveries required planning. This friction favored authority. Geography became governance. The house stood apart from village life intentionally. Employment connected locals economically, but boundaries remained firm. Historians argue this separation reinforced hierarchy while minimizing intrusion. Privacy was engineered, yet isolation carried cost. Emergency response slowed. Supply disruptions mattered. Weather intensified exposure. The hill amplified wind and cold, increasing heating demand. Logistics became brittle under strain. Ferdinand accepted this trade-off knowingly. Control outweighed convenience. The landscape became extension of will. Paths curved for sightlines. Trees framed views selectively. Nature was shaped, not embraced. This environment reinforced order psychologically. It also magnified vulnerability. When systems faltered, help was distant. Geography that empowered authority also removed buffers. The hill promised mastery. It quietly eliminated redundancy. That decision would echo later, when resilience mattered more than symbolism, and isolation shifted from advantage to liability under pressure. Waddesdon was conceived as a total environment, not merely a residence. Ferdinand intended it as a showcase of cultural continuity. Collections spanned centuries. Arrangement conveyed lineage rather than novelty. The house narrated stability. It presented wealth as inheritance, not acquisition. This distinction mattered deeply. In an age of rapid industrial change, Waddesdon asserted permanence. Historians believe this was intentional reassurance. The mansion functioned as argument. It claimed taste equaled legitimacy. Every object reinforced that message. Yet the vision extended beyond aesthetics. Waddesdon was designed to operate flawlessly during visits. Hospitality became performance. Meals aligned with spatial flow. Lighting emphasized artwork while concealing labor. The building taught guests how to move and respond. This orchestration created emotional calm. It also demanded constant rehearsal. Staff trained for precision. Deviations were corrected quickly. The vision left little tolerance for error. Unlike houses that evolved organically, Waddesdon pursued completion. Completion implied finality. Finality resists adaptation. Ferdinand sought to freeze excellence. That ambition carried risk. Time undermines fixed visions. Fashion shifts. Technology advances. What feels definitive today becomes burdensome tomorrow. The mansion succeeded brilliantly at its purpose. It also embedded rigidity. That rigidity would surface when conditions changed beyond design assumptions, testing whether vision could survive reality without transformation or surrender. Signs of strain appeared sooner than public narratives admit. Maintenance costs exceeded early estimates. Repairs followed completion almost immediately. Records suggest drainage issues required revision. Frost damaged exposed stone. Early electric systems demanded constant attention. Staffing turnover increased as expectations hardened. Ferdinand absorbed costs quietly. Pride discouraged reduction. Advisors flagged sustainability concerns. These warnings remained internal. Externally, success dominated perception. Social seasons continued. The house performed. Emotionally, vigilance replaced ease. Ferdinand's health declined intermittently, increasing reliance on managers. Delegation widened gaps between intent and execution. Small failures accumulated. A delayed delivery disrupted schedules. A boiler malfunction strained staff overnight. None were catastrophic. Together, they signaled fragility. Historians note that elite estates often fail not through singular collapse, but cumulative fatigue. Waddesdon entered that phase early. The house demanded youth from systems designed for longevity. That mismatch generated tension. Financial pressure remained manageable, but inflexible. Reserves existed. Margin narrowed. The warning was subtle. Perfection required constant correction. That requirement never eased. Instead, it normalized strain as baseline. Once strain becomes normal, collapse arrives disguised as routine. These early signs did not end the project. They quietly defined its future trajectory, setting conditions for later transformation under forces beyond personal control. Surveyors marked Waddesdon Hill before spectacle arrived. Stakes cut into chalk soil. Paths were cleared. Records indicate work began in 1874 with urgency. Ferdinand financed progress directly. No consortium diluted authority. Contractors answered upward. Excavation exposed wind and weather immediately. The hill resisted reshaping. Foundations demanded reinforcement. Early costs rose fast. Stone had to be quarried, shaped, and hauled uphill. Temporary rail lines were laid. Roads widened under strain. Villagers watched transformation with distance. Noise replaced pasture. Schedules tightened. Delays meant waste. Waste meant scrutiny. Ferdinand visited often. Decisions were immediate. Changes were costly, but accepted. The project entered momentum. Once begun, stopping became unthinkable. Capital already sunk demanded completion. Historians note this psychological lock-in. Early optimism masked irreversible commitment. Every trench deepened dependence. Labor increased weekly. Supply orders multiplied. Contracts extended. The ground itself became investment. Weather slowed progress. Frost halted masonry. Rain flooded trenches. Each pause consumed funds without output. Pressure mounted silently. The estate shifted from vision to obligation. Breaking ground crossed a threshold. From that point forward, withdrawal equaled loss. Completion became the only acceptable outcome. That reality hardened resolve and erased remaining doubt entirely thereafter. The workforce expanded rapidly as construction intensified. Skilled stonemasons arrived first. Carpenters followed. Engineers supervised systems unfamiliar to rural crews. Records suggest hundreds rotated through the site. Workdays were long. Safety standards were inconsistent. Heights were dangerous. Weather increased risk. Injuries occurred, though documentation remains sparse. Fatalities are possible, but historians avoid certainty. Exhaustion defined routine. Housing was temporary. Sanitation was basic. Pay was steady but conditional. Dismissal followed mistakes. Precision mattered. The house tolerated no shortcuts. Supervisors enforced pace relentlessly. Delays threatened budgets. Budgets governed everything. Workers became components within schedule. Pride coexisted with fatigue. Craftsmanship carried reputation. Many men understood the significance that awareness did not reduce strain. Cold stiffened hands. Heat slowed output. Tools wore down. Replacement cost money. Money burned hourly. Ferdinand remained distant from daily hazards. Management absorbed pressure. Discipline tightened as deadlines slipped. The workforce delivered excellence at personal cost. Their labor vanished behind finished walls. Visitors later praised beauty. Few acknowledged sacrifice. The estate depended on anonymity. Without visible workers, the illusion held. With them acknowledged, the myth weakened. Construction demanded invisibility. That invisibility exacted human tolls that records only partially preserve today. Materials logistics became the project's quiet crisis. Stone, timber, iron, glass, and slate arrived continuously. Each delivery required coordination. Records show expenses accelerating beyond projections. Imported stone increased prestige but multiplied transport cost. Rail solved distance partially. Final ascent remained manual. Horses strained, wagons broke. Replacement followed. Breakage meant loss. Loss meant reordering. Reordering consumed capital. Specialized interiors demanded foreign craftsmen and components. Currency conversion added friction. Delays abroad stalled progress locally. Warehousing expanded. Theft risk rose. Security increased expense. Time equaled money relentlessly. Winter storage added heating cost. Summer heat damaged materials. Insurance premiums climbed. The ledger thickened. Ferdinand authorized payment promptly. Momentum mattered more than restraint. Historians describe a burn rate difficult to reverse. Once supply chains stabilized, dependency locked in. Canceling orders risked penalties. Scaling back risked incoherence. The house required completeness. Partial splendor failed. Logistics thus enforced total commitment. Money flowed outward constantly. No revenue offset existed. This imbalance defined vulnerability. Wealth absorbed shock temporarily. Sustainability remained unanswered. Materials built beauty efficiently. They also drained reserves invisibly. Each finished room concealed its own cost history. By completion, the estate embodied accumulated expenditure. The question shifted irreversibly. The ledger grew heavier as the house approached completion. Early budgets proved optimistic. Records indicate final costs far exceeded initial projections. Maintenance estimates were revised repeatedly. Staff salaries stabilized at high levels. Fuel consumption surpassed forecasts each winter. Gardens required constant reinvestment. Electrical systems demanded upgrades sooner than planned. Nothing depreciated quietly. Every system aged loudly. Ferdinand absorbed overruns without public complaint. Wealth allowed flexibility. It did not eliminate consequence. Reserves diminished slowly but steadily. Income from investments offset losses temporarily. That balance required vigilance. Accountants flagged long-term exposure. Their warnings remained internal. The estate had no independent revenue. It consumed without replenishment. Historians note this imbalance as structural. Grandeur functioned as expense, not asset. The ledger transformed celebration into calculation. Every invitation carried marginal cost. Every repair postponed another improvement. Choices narrowed quietly. The house was complete. Its financial life was not. Expectation and reality diverged. That divergence widened annually. Numbers replaced dreams. Dreams did not pay invoices. The ledger closed each year. The pressure did not. This imbalance marked the true peak. From here, decline or adaptation waited. No reversal existed without sacrifice. To outsiders, Waddesdon appeared effortless and eternal. Guests encountered harmony, not labor. Public accounts emphasized culture and generosity. Newspapers praised taste and hospitality. Visitors described comfort and refinement. The estate symbolized old money stability. Its isolation suggested independence. Its scale suggested security. Few questioned sustainability. Fewer considered cost. The Rothschild name reinforced confidence. Success appeared inherited, not maintained. Staff discretion preserved illusion. Deliveries arrived unseen. Repairs occurred between seasons. Failures were corrected before notice. The house never appeared tired. That appearance became its shield. Admiration discouraged scrutiny. Curiosity softened into reverence. Reverence resists investigation. Historians argue this perception mattered deeply. It delayed difficult conversations. It reduced external pressure to adapt. Public belief functioned as insulation. Yet insulation traps heat. Inside, strain accumulated. Outside, applause continued. The contrast widened silently. Image outpaced reality. Reality remained hidden by design. This gap protected prestige temporarily. It also postponed reckoning. Time favored neither secrecy nor scale. The house aged regardless. Perception could not halt entropy. Eventually, belief would face evidence. That moment approached quietly. No announcement preceded its arrival. Privately, the central question resurfaced with urgency. How long could this endure? Ferdinand measured time differently now. Health concerns sharpened awareness. Management reports carried heavier weight. Every recommendation implied consequence. Reduce standards or increase spending. Neither felt acceptable. Tradition discouraged retreat. Pride discouraged exposure. The house demanded continuation. Continuation demanded resources. Resources demanded confidence. Confidence eroded under repetition. The same problems returned each year. Maintenance cycles tightened. Flexibility vanished gradually. Historians describe this as institutional fatigue. Systems performed but required constant correction. People compensated where design could not. That compensation exhausted loyalty. Silence masked stress. Stress hardened into routine. Routine concealed risk. The question no longer felt abstract. It felt immediate. What survives when the patron cannot? What remains when money slows? These thoughts rarely surfaced publicly. They shaped private decisions. Contingency planning increased quietly. Documentation expanded. Instructions clarified succession. The future entered conversation reluctantly, not as fear, but necessity. Waddesdon required survival planning. Survival implied change. Change threatened identity. That tension intensified nightly. Sleep did not resolve it. The house waited for an answer. Time refused to pause. The first blow arrived quietly, without scandal or violence. In 1898, Baron Ferdinand de Rothschild died at 59. Records indicate declining health preceded his death. The estate did not pause for grief. Systems required continuity. Decisions required authority. Ferdinand had been sole patron and final arbiter. His absence exposed concentration of control. Waddesdon had no redundancy at the top. Ownership transferred according to plan. But momentum faltered. The house lost its anchor. This was not dramatic collapse. It was structural destabilization. Historians note that founder-led estates often face this moment unprepared. Vision outlives its architect imperfectly. The house remained intact. The certainty behind it vanished. Staff awaited direction. Managers hesitated. Maintenance continued, but confidence thinned. Ferdinand's death transformed theoretical risk into lived reality. The question of endurance moved from future tense to present. No immediate crisis followed. That absence was misleading. The first blow did not shatter walls. It cracked assumptions. From this point forward, Waddesdon existed without its original purpose holder. That shift altered every calculation. Survival became inheritance's burden. The house no longer asked what Ferdinand wanted. It demanded decisions from those who had not built it, testing whether structure alone could replace singular will. The immediate fallout unfolded administratively rather than publicly. Legal processes transferred control to Ferdinand's sister, Alice de Rothschild. Records suggest she assumed responsibility swiftly. Continuity was prioritized. Staff retained positions. Social functions resumed cautiously. Yet subtle fractures appeared. Decision-making slowed. Authority diffused. The estate's rhythm lost urgency. Some improvements were postponed. Others were reassessed. Expenses faced new scrutiny. The ledger tightened. Projects once approved automatically now required justification. That shift altered morale. Managers recalibrated expectations. Workers sensed caution. Recruitment slowed. Replacement cycles stretched. The house still functioned. It did so defensively. Historians emphasize that nothing failed spectacularly. Instead, flexibility narrowed. The estate could not rely on momentum alone. Legal clarity did not equal operational clarity. Alice valued preservation over expansion. That priority protected assets. It also reduced adaptability. Immediate fallout was not decay, but constraint. The machine kept running. It ran differently. Without Ferdinand's appetite for total commitment, trade-offs surfaced. Some systems aged without upgrade. Others consumed resources begrudgingly. Stability replaced ambition. That change prevented collapse. It also acknowledged limits. Waddesdon shifted from assertion to endurance. The break was complete, even if quietly managed. The human cost followed gradually. Ferdinand left no widow or direct heirs. Responsibility fell across family, staff, and trustees. Alice inherited not only a house, but its obligations. Workers faced uncertainty masked as continuity. Long-serving staff aged without clear succession planning. Some positions consolidated, others disappeared quietly. Loyalty met restraint. Historians suggest emotional bonds softened decisions, but could not override economics. The estate required fewer risks, fewer expansions, fewer indulgences. That contraction affected livelihoods. Promotions slowed. Wages stabilized rather than rose. Pride remained, but urgency faded. The house no longer promised growth. It promised survival. For heirs, inheritance carried burden more than freedom. For workers, stability replaced aspiration. The mansion endured. The human experience narrowed. This was not cruelty. It was consequence. Grandeur demanded sacrifice. Without singular patronage, sacrifice redistributed downward. Waddesdon remained beautiful. It remained costly. It also became heavier. The loss of Ferdinand did not end the story. It changed its weight. From this point forward, every decision measured not ambition, but endurance. The cost of continuity revealed itself in lives shaped by restraint rather than vision. The choices facing Waddesdon hardened after transition. Preservation demanded funding. Funding demanded compromise. Records suggest reductions were considered but resisted. Selling the house outright risked dispersal of collections. Retaining it privately risked financial exhaustion. Staff levels were reviewed repeatedly. Some roles merged. Others vanished through attrition. Gardens were simplified. Replacement plantings slowed. Decorative updates stopped. Sacrifice became structural, not symbolic. Comfort yielded to conservation. Ambition yielded to caution. The house could not shrink physically. It could only contract functionally. Historians note this dilemma was common among elite estates entering the 20th century. Choices were never clean. Every option carried loss. Preserve integrity and sacrifice growth. Preserve independence and sacrifice liquidity. Delay decisions and sacrifice resilience. Alice de Rothschild favored stewardship. That meant accepting limits Ferdinand never faced. The estate survived by narrowing scope. That narrowing altered experience. Waddesdon remained impressive. It felt quieter, less dynamic, more guarded. Impossible choices did not destroy it. They reshaped it. The cost was invisibly absorbed into daily operations. What visitors noticed as serenity was restraint. What workers felt as stability was contraction. Survival required letting go of expansion permanently. That decision closed one future to preserve another. Something intangible was lost alongside scale. Privacy eroded gradually. Administrative oversight increased. Advisors multiplied. Documentation expanded. Personal discretion narrowed. Land management shifted from expression to efficiency. Some acreage was repurposed. Access paths formalized. Boundaries hardened. The estate's identity subtly changed. It moved from personal domain to managed asset. Historians argue this transition altered meaning more than appearance. Waddesdon ceased being an extension of individual will. It became an object of responsibility. That shift diluted intimacy. The house no longer reflected a single personality. It reflected consensus. Consensus preserves, but rarely inspires. Identity softened. The Rothschild presence remained, but differently framed. Public awareness increased as privacy receded. Curiosity replaced invitation. The house stood as symbol rather than home. That change carried emotional cost. Stewardship required transparency. Transparency invited scrutiny. Scrutiny discouraged freedom. Waddesdon lost the ability to exist unseen. Its survival depended on recognition. Recognition demanded openness. The estate traded isolation for endurance. This was not a single moment. It unfolded slowly. Each adjustment felt minor. Together, they transformed essence. The house survived materially. Something personal slipped away. The radical decision arrived through policy, not drama. In 1957, Waddesdon Manor was entrusted to the National Trust. Records confirm this was deliberate and unprecedented in scale. A Rothschild estate entered public stewardship. Tradition resisted fiercely. Private houses rarely surrendered control. This choice secured preservation. It also relinquished autonomy. Collections were protected through separate trusts. Access expanded dramatically. The house's role transformed. Home became institution. Identity recalibrated overnight. Historians view this as pragmatic brilliance. Without it, sustainability was doubtful. Yet the shock was real. Generations had defined Waddesdon as private legacy. Public ownership challenged that lineage. The decision reframed success. Survival replaced sovereignty. The estate gained stability. It lost exclusivity. Management professionalized. Conservation replaced personalization. Visitors replaced guests. The manor's future stabilized at the cost of intimacy. This was not decline. It was reinvention. Reinvention acknowledged reality. Wealth alone could not guarantee endurance. Structure could. The decision closed old narratives and opened new ones. Waddesdon accepted permanence through transformation. That acceptance marked its second life. Public reaction was complex and divided. Curiosity surged. Attendance rose quickly. Many welcomed access to previously unseen rooms. Others criticized loss of private guardianship. Some feared dilution of character. Newspapers framed the transfer as enlightened stewardship. Traditionalists called it surrender. Workers adjusted to institutional protocols. Visitors brought revenue and scrutiny. The estate entered national consciousness. Preservation standards tightened. Restoration followed academic rigor. The house became educational. That shift pleased historians. It unsettled romantics. Resistance softened over time as benefits became visible. Waddesdon thrived as attraction. Maintenance stabilized. Financial pressure eased. Yet the tone changed. The manor now performed history rather than living it. Public presence altered atmosphere permanently. Silence became rare. Privacy vanished entirely. The trade was clear. Survival demanded exposure. Exposure demanded discipline. Judgment accompanied both. Over decades, criticism faded into acceptance. The house endured storms that would have ended private ownership. Reinvention succeeded materially. Emotionally, it marked closure. Waddesdon's story did not end. It changed audience. That change preserved walls and collections. It also fixed identity and time. The cost of survival was openness. The reward was continuity. With public stewardship secured, Waddesdon's purpose reset fundamentally. It no longer functioned as a private household with selective access. It became an institution with obligations. Conservation plans replaced personal preference. Visitor flow dictated room use. Climate control prioritized artifacts over comfort. Staff roles shifted toward education, security, and preservation. The house adopted schedules aligned with public seasons rather than family rhythms. Historians note this transition formalized what had already begun privately. Documentation intensified. Decisions required committee approval. Authority dispersed deliberately. The manor's narrative standardized. Interpretation framed collections within national history. Personal anecdotes receded. Institutional memory expanded. This new purpose ensured coherence. It also limited spontaneity. The house could not change quickly. Exhibitions required planning years ahead. Alterations faced scrutiny. Risk tolerance dropped sharply. The estate's success was measured in footfall, conservation metrics, and public trust. Emotionally, the house became quieter in intent, busier in presence. Waddesdon accepted responsibility beyond lineage. It served public knowledge. That service justified continued investment. The building remained magnificent. Its meaning broadened. Home transformed into reference point. Legacy shifted from inheritance to stewardship. That shift anchored the estate securely. It also ended its private chapter definitively. Waddesdon assumed roles its builders never anticipated. During the 20th century, it supported cultural preservation amid instability. Records indicate artworks were protected during wartime dispersal efforts. The house functioned as secure storage and morale symbol. National need reframed value. Beauty became resilience. Accessibility offered continuity during disruption. The estate's survival during conflict reinforced public attachment. It was no longer merely impressive. It was useful. Historians argue this utility strengthened justification for preservation funding. Waddesdon contributed to collective identity during uncertain periods. Educational programs expanded. Scholarship deepened. The manor hosted research, exhibitions, and restoration training. These functions extended relevance beyond tourism. The house adapted without altering form. Its walls sheltered evolving purpose. That adaptability contrasted sharply with its rigid origins. The estate now responded to external demands rather than internal vision. This responsiveness ensured relevance. It also tethered the house to public priorities. Funding followed interest. Interest followed narrative framing. The manor learned to speak nationally. In doing so, it relinquished neutrality. Culture shaped its role. National need defined its future. That alignment protected it. It also constrained it within institutional expectations permanently. Stability arrived, but it carried conditions. Preservation never concludes. Costs recur endlessly. Visitor wear accelerates decay. Conservation offsets damage slowly. The estate balances access with protection constantly. Records show ongoing investment remains substantial. Survival requires revenue. Revenue requires openness. Openness reshapes experience. Silence gives way to interpretation. Mystery yields to signage. The house lives under perpetual management. This altered state defines modern Waddesdon. It endures without threat of sale or collapse. It also exists without privacy or autonomy. Historians describe this as institutional immortality. The building survives generations. The original intent does not. What remains is curated permanence. Stability replaced vulnerability. Alteration replaced identity. The house stands intact. Its meaning stabilized into consensus. That consensus protects stone, art, and memory. It also fixes narrative boundaries. Waddesdon survives by agreeing to be known. That agreement costs freedom, yet refusal would have cost existence. The trade cannot be reversed. Survival demanded surrender. Surrender delivered continuity. The estate persists, altered but secure. The final measure is not whether it changed, but whether it endured long enough for change to matter. Modern Waddesdon operates at industrial scale disguised as leisure. Visitor numbers shape daily decisions. Timetables govern room access. Security systems monitor movement continuously. Management resembles a mid-sized enterprise. Conservation teams, educators, guides, gardeners, engineers, and administrators operate year-round. Records indicate thousands of visitors pass through annually. Each arrival adds wear. Each departure leaves cost. The estate balances accessibility against fragility constantly. Routes are controlled to protect floors. Climate systems run continuously to stabilize interiors. Exhibitions rotate to limit exposure. Staffing remains substantial. Training is continuous. Risk assessments replace intuition. The manor's beauty now depends on procedure. Scale protects relevance, but complicates intimacy. What once functioned as a household now functions as infrastructure. Decision-making prioritizes longevity over experience. Visitors encounter curated movement rather than discovery. This structure ensures consistency. It also removes spontaneity entirely. The house survives because it is managed relentlessly. Tourism sustains visibility. Management sustains function. Scale sustains funding. None restore privacy. Waddesdon's modern life is stable, efficient, and exposed. It no longer hides its machinery. It depends on it. The transformation is complete. The house stands because it performs, not because it rests. Preservation never ends. Stone erodes. Roofs shift. Wood dries. Textiles fade. Conservation arrests decline, but cannot reverse time. Records show restoration cycles repeating endlessly. Each completed repair schedules another. Paint analysis, mortar testing, and humidity monitoring never stop. Success means postponement, not resolution. Budgets reflect this reality. Funds are allocated annually for problems not yet visible. Emergency reserves exist for storms, pests, or mechanical failure. Climate change increases unpredictability. Heat stresses interiors. Rain tests drainage. Wind pressures roofs. The house absorbs environmental pressure constantly. Preservation costs rise faster than inflation. Skilled labor is scarce. Materials require sourcing precision. Mistakes are irreversible. Decisions carry weight. Delay increases damage. Intervention risks authenticity. Historians emphasize this paradox. Preservation requires interference. Interference alters originality. The estate navigates compromise permanently. Nothing is finished. Everything is monitored. Beauty persists through effort alone. The house remains intact because it is never complete. Preservation is not maintenance. It is resistance. Resistance demands resources without endpoint. Waddesdon survives by accepting endless obligation. The cost is not hidden. It is continuous. Stability exists only through unbroken attention, vigilance, and willingness to pay indefinitely. The question of payment has shifted decisively. Private wealth no longer carries the burden alone. Visitors fund survival through tickets, memberships, and donations. Workers provide labor under institutional frameworks. The public contributes indirectly through grants and tax structures. Responsibility disperses across society. This distribution stabilizes risk. It also dilutes ownership. No single patron absorbs failure. No single will defines direction. Workers trade intimacy for security. Visitors trade access for preservation. The public trades funds for heritage. Each exchange carries cost. Employment remains steady but constrained. Wages compete with market limits. Passion supplements compensation. Volunteer labor fills gaps. That reliance introduces vulnerability. Tourism revenue fluctuates. Economic downturns threaten maintenance. Public funding follows political priorities. Preservation competes with other needs. Waddesdon survives through alignment with public value. That alignment requires constant justification. Reports, audits, and impact assessments replace discretion. Payment is ongoing, collective, and conditional. The house exists because many accept responsibility for it. No one fully owns it. Everyone contributes. This structure prevents collapse. It also prevents freedom. Survival is secured through shared obligation. Beauty endures because cost is distributed widely, quietly, and continuously among people who may never fully experience its burden directly. What endured is not wealth, but form. Architecture remains largely unchanged. Land boundaries hold. Sightlines persist. Memory accumulates through interpretation. The house no longer belongs to a family narrative alone. It belongs to recorded history. Objects retain placement. Rooms retain purpose. Gardens retain geometry. These continuities anchor meaning. Yet endurance is selective. Silence did not survive. Privacy did not survive. Authority did not survive. What endured was material evidence of ambition. Waddesdon stands as proof of what concentrated resources can construct. It also stands as proof of what they cannot sustain alone. The house survives because it surrendered exclusivity. It endures because it accepted alteration. Memory is now curated rather than lived. Visitors inherit story, not responsibility. Workers inherit responsibility, not ownership. The estate balances between permanence and exposure. That balance defines its legacy. The mansion remains beautiful. Its survival required sacrifice layered over generations. The final measure is not admiration. It is endurance. Beauty persists because cost was paid repeatedly by different hands under changing rules. The question remains unresolved, lingering quietly within preserved walls and managed grounds. What does beauty really cost? Over the decades, Waddesdon's modern operation refined efficiency without compromising heritage. Visitor numbers stabilized through timed entry and pre-booked tours. Staff schedules operate year-round, coordinated across conservation, education, and security. Restoration work follows scientific protocols, ensuring authenticity while minimizing exposure. Historic documents guide interventions from masonry repair to climate control adjustments. Public programming expanded to include lectures, exhibitions, and research access, integrating the estate into cultural networks nationally. Volunteers supplement professional teams, supporting interpretation and engagement. Digital archives now preserve fragile records while reducing physical handling. Gardens maintain seasonal rotations aligned with historic patterns, blending aesthetic fidelity with sustainable practice. Infrastructure upgrades are discreetly implemented to avoid visual disruption. Every intervention balances preservation against usability. Records track expenditure meticulously. Each repair, replacement, and improvement is logged, reviewed, and scheduled. Visitors experience continuity, unaware of ongoing labor behind the scenes. Every room, corridor, and gallery remains under constant observation. Management focuses on long-term survival rather than short-term spectacle. Systems are now preventive, not reactive. Historical fidelity guides innovation. The house is operationalized as both museum and cultural landmark. Waddesdon's continued existence demonstrates that disciplined administration, public engagement, and methodical oversight can preserve grandeur indefinitely. Its scale, complexity, and historical resonance demand nothing less than relentless attention, ensuring that what survives is both magnificent and sustainable. The ongoing cost of Waddesdon manifests in perpetual resource allocation. Buildings age continuously. Materials deteriorate under environmental stress. Stone requires repointing. Timber must be treated. Roofs demand regular inspection. Interiors, from tapestries to furniture, need specialist attention. Climate control systems function continuously to stabilize temperature and humidity, preventing irreversible damage. Lighting is calibrated to protect surfaces from UV degradation. Emergency protocols are tested periodically. Landscaping requires labor-intensive care. Soil management, pruning, seasonal planting, and pest control are all ongoing. Fire safety, security monitoring, and insurance constitute constant expense. Skilled artisans are rare, making labor expensive and often specialized. Each intervention involves planning, budgeting, and logistical coordination. Funding is allocated annually to address both expected and unforeseen needs. Historians emphasize that preservation is continuous, not episodic. Maintenance cycles intersect with visitor schedules, requiring careful timing. Nothing is static. Even periods of apparent calm involve monitoring and readiness. Financial oversight ensures sustainability. Margins are narrow. Compromise is rare. The estate cannot pause without consequence. Preservation is the estate's labor of necessity. Costs recur indefinitely. It demands labor across generations, perpetual financial input, and structured oversight at immense scale. Workers endure rigorous routines to maintain aesthetics. Visitors subsidize operation through fees, participation, and engagement. Public institutions invest resources to ensure preservation. Historic materials require specialist intervention. Gardens, structures, and collections need constant care. Decisions involve trade-offs between authenticity, usability, and access. Time accelerates degradation. Climate, human activity, and entropy are constant threats. Original intention cannot be replicated fully. Adaptation is essential for survival. Beauty survives through sustained effort, financial input, and collective responsibility. Every intervention maintains facade, structure, or landscape at the cost of spontaneity, privacy, and personal expression. Generations inherit stewardship as much as inheritance. Waddesdon's continuity illustrates how grandeur is inseparable from labor, planning, and sacrifice. The estate exemplifies endurance through organization, shared accountability, and unbroken vigilance. Its survival demonstrates the necessity of compromise to maintain aesthetic, historical, and cultural value. Ultimately, Waddesdon asks a question that echoes silently through every corridor, room, and terrace, inviting reflection on the intersection of wealth, labor, and permanence. What does beauty really cost?